Good evening. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The Select Board is called to order May 7th, 2020 at 6:06 p.m. I'm going to take a roll call of the Selectmen. Ed,
Here.
Mike,
Here.
Sheila,
Here.
Pat,
Here.
Alan is here also. We're
Can
going to
can I just ask that we promote Werner Gilliam too? I forgot him in all the chaos.
Poor Werner.
So we're going to review the business community reopening plan, and I'm going to just kind of give this to Tina.
Thanks, Alan.
You are welcome.
Thank you so much. Well, first of all, I really want to thank all of you for taking the time to review the documents that we've put together. But more importantly, I would like to thank Lori for her leadership and vision in asking us to work on this project in order to help promote the safe reopening of Kennebunkport. It's partnerships like this that I think are really going to get us through all this craziness and bring us to a new level of normalcy. And so thank you so much for all of you and your participation. Lori contacted us a few weeks ago, asked us, Deb and I, to co-chair a committee a task force to talk about what does reopening Kennebunkport look like safely. And so we reached out to some of our community members that encompassed all different areas of the different sectors in the hospitality business. Obviously, there's hotels, there's restaurants, but there's also marinas, and there's spas, and there's boat excursions. There's the retail section that has jewelry and specialty foods, and the list could go on and on, but that's where we started. And so we compiled a task force and we tasked them to look at when they're able to reopen, how are they going to reopen their businesses responsibly? And what kind of safety protocols are they going to put in place in their own businesses for their individual sectors? So there's obviously mandates that have been given to us and regulations that have been given to us that we have to add into our new operating procedures. However, there's also other tactics and protocols that we're adding in on our own to ensure the safety of our guests and our staff. And so the first thing we started doing is we started researching what information is out there, what have other states done, what are things that have worked and that haven't worked, what do some of these plans look like? And the first thing that we need to do is make sure that we're instilling confidence. We instill confidence in the people that would be coming here, any of our patrons that would be entering any one of our businesses. And so we figure with that level, we need to make a promise to them, and we need to promise them that we're doing our job to make sure that we're sanitizing properly, we're educating properly, and that we have the correct protocols in place to bring them back into our community safely. So we developed what we call the Kennebunkport Promise. And with the Kennebunkport Promise, we outlined some information that we feel is really important, that we're telling people that this is our promise to you as businesses. And I certainly don't need to read through all of this, but I think you all have copies of this. I don't, Deb, if you want to share your screen.
Yeah, I just tried to. I can't. I'm disabled.
Okay.
If you want to enable me, I can share my screen because we have a few other things that
we wanted to show. So I'll keep talking while they take care of abling you. So we put together our promises of things that we would ensure that our businesses will be doing, and then in turn asking guests coming to us that they promise us that if they've been exposed to COVID-19 to stay home and to respect the social distancing. We put together a flyer that says we're working hard to keep our town a safe place to stay and play. As you can see, it's right on Deb's screen right there. And so it's got a nice encouraging picture of a sunrise in the water there. And then if you go through this document, there's of course information overload these days, and there's a lot of uncertainties, and there's a lot of sectors that haven't had their mandates outlined yet in order to open. So we asked people in the different sectors if they didn't have their mandates to look at a phased in approach. If they were to be able to reopen tomorrow, what would phase one look like? What would phase two look like? And what would phase three look like? So obviously phase one would begin on June 1st for most of our businesses. And that's a very limited scope, but each sector addresses what does that look like in that phase, and what protocols are they going to be putting in place. The next phase typically is going to be July and August, which is our summer season. Again, certain mandates have been put to us from the governor. Others are national regulations that we or recommendations, if you will, that we should be installing in our businesses. And then phase three is obviously lessening some of these restrictions. We put together a list of best practices for all employees across all sectors. So there's a very detailed information of what every business should be expecting of their employees in the safety protocols and the sanitation side of what their business is going to look like. Now, of course, certain businesses are going to have their own employee regulations. For instance, in a restaurant, you're going to want to have your kitchen, all of your kitchen people, food safe, serve safe, which certified, which is a national program for safe food handling. In the housekeeping, where you're having high touch points of exposures, there's going to be different trainings that are expected in there, and there's also different cleaning products that we're going to be asked to be used. And so throughout this document, there's hyperlinks to a lot of different resources of where they can find this information. So if they're saying, but what do I use for cleaning products? There's a link to what is the recommended or acceptable products to be using. So we look at this document as something that is going to be, I don't want a living document, if you will, one that's going to constantly evolve with all of the changing of the times. And as new information comes out, we can update this document to reflect all of the new information that our sector is going to be needing. So this is really going to be an amazing resource as we move forward. There's information overload everywhere out there, and so this will be sort of a one-stop shop for them. There'll be CDC guidelines. There's going to be information from every sector. There'll be information, links to the governor's page. There's a whole resource page that still needs to be populated, but that will definitely be something that will be coming. So when we get this 100%
You want to talk to Ed?
What's that?
Yes.
Don't mind
I'm
Sheila. I think she's on her phone.
Okay.
Oh,
Hold
okay.
on. I'm on a Zoom meeting. I'm going to give you.
I love it. So once all of these procedures have been finalized, and I would say that we're about 85% there, I would anticipate that tomorrow the restaurant guidelines are going to be coming out from the governor. So we're going to update that based on the restaurant section will be updated based on those new guidelines. But once all of this is done, then the kind of the fun work comes in. When the Kennebunkport promise is something that we would like to have every business sign on to. So in other words, for instance, the Nonantum or KRC would sign the promise, meaning that their businesses agree to adhere to these strict guidelines. And in turn, we're of course going to be able to help promote the business and provide information to them that they can send out to their customers. The great thing that is happening in the backside of this is we're building a website so that this document actually becomes alive. Deb is working with my director of marketing, and we are building a website that will house all of this information. What Deb is showing you right now is down in Cape May, they've produced a website that has basically taken the type of document that we have and brought it to life in a website in a very clean, clear, concise manner. And this is the sort of the layout that they see moving forward. Deb, do you want to talk a little bit about this? Because it's positive, it's clear, it's a one-stop shop. It can have frequently asked questions, etc.
Let me look at that. So we saw this, the website is being able to house the business information, sort of in a resource guide back of the house. But this would be a great customer facing and a business information site where we could keep everything in one place. So right now, you find that when we have to go to a number of different sources to actually find out what's happening, whether when the governor makes a change or something opens or doesn't. So the FAQs is a great place where we can actually answer questions that would be pretty common for somebody who's in the community or a visitor. Are your public restrooms open? Is the beach open? Does it require passes? And the chamber has agreed to keep this site up to date. We want to make it as, use as many hyperlinks as possible so that we keep the information super fresh, very current, and user friendly. Our page will emulate the promise, in its sort of the colors, the design. We won't use all the same navigation here, but we envision having an FAQ, the COVID resources. There'll be a business resource page that you can drop down and see the hotel standards, the retail standards, golf, marina. It's at all the different market segments. We're going to create another general business tab. I know Werner's had a couple conversations with some of the construction companies or people who are not necessarily directly hospitality related, but who are certainly wanting to ensure that their businesses are being run with that same level of focus and attention to safety practices, and being out in the community. So we talked yesterday about having the ability for them to be on this as well. Down in this, let's see, let me go back to home. Slow Wi-Fi, sorry. Back where the boxes were, what we hope to do there is represent the businesses who have actually signed on to the promise, the Kennebunkport promise. So if you're in the restaurant section, you're actually one who has said, I have embraced these standards and that's how I want to operate. It's same in the retail section. So on that homepage, that's where we were identifying who the participating businesses would be. And we thought that's a great way to identify that out to both our customers and our community, that these businesses feel this is that important to open safely and address, these same issues.
Right.
Very good. So I have just one question. And I think you guys did a wonderful job putting all this together in such a short period of time. But
Thanks,
on the
Ellen.
restaurant dining room, phase 1,
Mm-hmm.
at the very top, it
Mhm.
says limit tables to 10 or fewer guests. So what do you really actually mean by that? I mean, how are they going to be 6 feet apart? I mean, is this just for families or together?
That's where I think some of the
10
clarification on
people at
this,
a table?
Alan, currently you can't have gatherings of groups of larger than 10 people. And so part of some of this uncertainty is the lack of clarity as to what that 10 means. Yeah, so is it like 5 couples that can get together and be 10 people, or is it a family of 10? We don't have that directive quite yet. That's coming to us tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Hospitality Maine sent out an email letting us know that they'll be announcing the restaurant guidelines. So that's why these types of resources are so important, because so the next time there's an update, instead of trying to figure out where do I find that information, what website do I go to? Is it on Maine.gov? Is it on Kennebunk? Is it at the chamber? or whatever, they'll have this will house all of that information, and we'll make sure that it's up to date. And this is where these partnerships are so incredibly valuable, with the town, with the chamber, with KBA, and all of the local businesses who have participated. So I know that we'll be able to keep all this information up to date and relevant.
Okay,
So
great.
questions like that will exactly be answered. Yeah, what does that mean? What does that group of 10 mean?
Right. What does it mean to be a retail store where you
Right.
really actually can't have social distancing of 6 feet?
Right.
So it might be that under 5,000 square feet, you can have 3 people in it. So we'll try to we'll be monitoring that super closely to be sure that we have the most up-to-date and relevant and pertinent information. That said, we don't want to be the COVID police,
Yeah.
or the COVID experts. A lot of this is best practices, and we try to go a little bit above and beyond in
Yep.
providing detail as to how do you achieve the highest level that you can. Because at the end of the day, what we're hearing from customers, if they're going to travel, they want to be sure that it
Safe.
feels good,
Yeah.
super safe,
Yeah.
and you've
Okay.
thought about it and you've put a commitment behind it. And we're thankful that you've allowed us that opportunity to present that to you. And I think we have with our promise and the decals, we get to put that forward out to our guests.
So I think that what Deb is also saying is that it's important for every business to have those protocols in place, but to be able to say to our community members and our visitors alike that this entire community embraces safety, and their well-being, and sanitation skills, and we take this seriously. That's big. That's not happening
is.
in that's not happening in other communities, and we are so grateful to have this opportunity, because we really take this very seriously. We put a lot of work into this, and we've had a lot of great feedback from all these different sectors. And what Deb was referring to with the decal, is she has taken a part of the promise and put it into a decal format, so that when someone signs on to the promise, they'll be given, we'll mail them or send them a decal that they can actually put up on their business, so they can put it on their door. So there's going to be a constant reinforcement that when you walk in this door and you see this decal, this is a safe business to go into. They've signed on to this promise. So we're going to be doing some outreach in the beginning of the week, with the help of Laura Dolce from the chamber, who's going to be setting up some panel discussions, so that we can start pushing this information out to other businesses to say, if you want to sign on to this, these are the things that we're going to do. But
Could I get my screen enabled again? I'm disabled today. I have a couple I could show you the decal and also some of our marketing action steps.
Okay, you should be able to.
Yeah. There's would be a vinyl decal, not a sticker, so that we have the, not that we want to remove it, but that we have the ability to. So I've ordered these, so these should be available. And then also on our agenda, oops, sorry. Share screen.
yeah, the communication plan.
Yeah.
Okay.
Here you just see some of the our deployment of information. We recognize this is where the rubber hits the road, so to speak. So as Tina mentioned, we'll start next week with Laurel set up some panel discussions where some of the task force members and Tina and I can talk about the process that we went through and kind of hit some of the nitty gritty of the actual document. We'll be using the chamber and the KBA email lists and newsletters and blasts to get that information out. And then we're hopeful to get some articles in Tourist in Town and some of the other local publications. I think, the most important part is getting that information out, and that this isn't mandated or the law or rules so much as hopefully just a great resource guide as you move forward and trying to figure out how to open your business and feel that you've done a good job at taking care of your team members, the people entering your doors, and that the community feels that we've been attentive to it. So any other ideas for deployment? We're wide open, but that's our
I have
initial plan.
I have another question for you. I think there's another group that would like to join in on this, and that's the short-term rental and the Airbnb rentals.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Laura, do you want to talk about that, or I'm happy to also.
Yeah, so I mean, first of all, I just want to really thank the group for doing so much work in a short period of time. This is many, many layered, this whole reopening that we're focused on, and it has many facets to it. And so we're trying to, bring back to the selectmen, different pieces of it. And certainly this was a group of businesses that worked together. I did talk to Maria Junker today, and she volunteered to help with Kathy Anazuski and Heather Moats to put something together for short-term rentals. The rental industry is an important part of our town as well, and they are varied in terms of whether somebody's on an individual basis or they're doing it as a business. And so that continuum, I think, could really use some support, because I think one of the things we learned through this process is the importance of brainstorming and networking. So somebody has a resource or understands a piece of this, because all the information from feds and states hasn't always been crystal clear, and it's still evolving. And so really having that resource, whether you're a big business or a small resource, being able to brainstorm and use those same resources is so important. And Werner's also been talking to the construction industry, and we've been talking to them as well about safe practices in the community, so that people feel good about when they invite a company in to do some small work or big work, that they have similar resources. So I think, that's great. And this is a draft document. So it says draft in the document itself, but when it turned into a PDF, it didn't show the draft anymore. So I just want to make sure people know that since the document was put up, I mean, there are more edits that have happened to it, and there will continue to be. This is not the final end game here, and it will continue to live and breathe. So we're hoping that we can add more to our business sections, and I think it would be a great opportunity. I also know that some other communities are looking for us to share this. So I have heard from others who would like us to assist them with the information that we've been able to gather in the framework. And Werner, I don't know if you have anything to add.
Yeah, no, I think that there's been a tremendous amount of work that's been done, in pulling all of this together. And as we've talked, we have more industries, that are also interested in, in being a part of this. I think we also see this as an opportunity to be able to promote those businesses that have agreed to sign on to these good practices, these cleanliness practices. We want to make sure that we're that we're helping them instill a level of consumer confidence, if they've agreed to do these types of things. And so I think this is a really great tool, that we're going to be able to use and to promote, not only through the town's media resources, but all the businesses that sign on as well.
Now all the work starts.
Yeah.
Actually implementing it all.
Anything else? No?
The only other question or comment, a number of the Kennebunk businesses in the hospitality right across the bridge have asked to be part of it, and we're very supportive of that. We think that we're all one community, and from our guest perspective, that they're not differentiating that, and we'd love to be able to share all this information. Any thoughts on that or concerns?
I think the more the better, as long as, you know,
Yeah,
Kennebunkport, especially the lower village.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All the
yeah,
same.
that's exactly how we felt.
That's
Because I
my
think
opinion.
Yeah.
Well, I think the more communities that adopt this type of promise, the stronger the state becomes. And so, yes, of course, we want to promote and take care of Kennebunkport first, but I think, also have the responsibility to help our other communities once we get ourselves there. So, and I apologize. I should have written draft on that PDF. The only reason it was sent as a PDF is because there were some edits that were coming through, and it was a formatting issue. So I apologize for not having draft written on the back of that.
Well, we really thank you very much for presenting this tonight because it's really important. And you guys have done a wonderful job pulling all this together so quickly.
And
Thank
Tina and Deb, I'm sorry that I didn't help at all. I'm so sorry, but just too much going on. But you guys did great.
Hey, Sheila, we're all doing our part. You
Exactly.
also have this part-time job called being a select person that's keeping you
Exactly.
busy too. So don't you worry about it.
Well, we had a record meeting last night, didn't we, Richard?
If you want to call it that, Sheila.
So what would
appreciate-
what would our next steps be? Do we need to do anything else, Lori?
I think the next steps are, to try and include the other businesses that aren't part of it, that they're working on that piece of it, and to start to put the pieces in a more final form that we can put on a website. So I like the idea. I get a lot of questions every day, and there's a lot of different links to the state and different places, and it's like, if we can help people get to what the answers are they're looking for and keep that updated, I think that would be beneficial for our residents, our business owners, whether you just own a home that you rent or whether you're, own several hotels, so
Right.
I think it would be helpful for everybody and for visitors as well. It would help the town communicate information, I think, as well.
Probably putting it out or giving it to the KBA and the chamber to get it out on their email list would be the first step, my thought.
Yes, we are. We're actually, I think, not going to wholeheartedly just distribute it out. We're hoping to get everybody on some calls. But
Right.
yes, absolutely, for sure. I mean, it needs to go out, and some of the businesses are opening June 1.
Right.
So there's a fair amount of work that has to get done and supplies ordered. It's a little daunting. I think Tina could speak to this too, as we started the work.
Oh my
There was
gosh.
some great resources out there that we were able to tap into, happening in other communities, but it was still like, wow. And then
Yeah.
I would wake up in the middle of the night thinking, how am I going to implement half of this?
And still be a hospitality business.
There'll be and,
Right,
one of the
right.
things we didn't talk a little bit about, but it is super important to still have a hospitable experience when you come here.
Right.
You
Right.
don't want a visitor coming and having when I go to Hannaford, I feel like I'm in a Twilight Zone experience. And,
hmm
you really don't want to go away and have that in where you're staying or dining or shopping. So it is a super fine balance, but it is very, very important.
Hey, Deb and Tina, this is Pat Briggs.
Hi, Pat.
Hey, Pat.
Hey, I would like to say this is so fantastic that there's got to be a place that you want to have this reside in the cyberspace. And that has to be, I don't know if the town website is this, or is this going to be a standalone website? How are we going to link it so people know where to go to catch the information as it relates to these two towns, okay?
Do you want to talk to that, Deb?
Sure. The site will be created under K-Port Promises, but we will link it to the town, Chamber of Commerce, as many our own businesses. So it'll be as up to date as it can be, and then we'll be sure to be linking back to other, Chamber, KBA, town for the most part, because you're going to have the largest audience there.
Right. Well, once you get it all set up that way, then everybody can reference it in any of their documentation to their customers and so forth. So There's,
Exactly.
you
Yeah, I
don't have
told
to,
Rob we needed it last Friday, but
right,
it could be next Friday.
We
yeah.
were working on a Back to the Future plan, so don't you worry about it, Deb. We'll get it to you.
Yes,
Any
I
more-
could go back to March 13th. That would be.
Right.
Any more questions for Tina or Deb?
Do we
No.
need it? Do you have to vote on this, or I mean, do we have your blessing
we're
to
good.
move forward?
You
Okay.
do.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
We
Okay.
appreciate it. Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for
Thank
taking
you.
time
Oh,
to-
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you guys too, for sure.
Okay.
Enjoy your
So-
evening. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
So Lori, I think you have something you want to bring forward?
Yes, Werner and I sent out a memo, and it's on the website under the agenda packet as well now. Today, that Werner has been, I just brought up a poll here, hold on. Werner has been working with the business community as well on some of the issues related to the pandemic. And so one of the things that we've really thought about, and we are seeing many other communities in the state do, is work at whether it is helping have seating outdoors for restaurants, trying to be understanding of situations that are arising because of the pandemic, and wanting to keep public health on the forefront. And so some of the issues that he's been discussing with businesses are in the memo. And, you know, these challenges are about how to meet requirements in the executive orders, the CDC guidelines, local procedures, and physical restraints. And so in order to thread the needle from what was normal to this new world, we think it would be prudent for the Board of Selectmen to direct us to work within a set of parameters to address situations that are unique to this particular circumstance and time. So we think it would be important that businesses should be allowed to maintain their current capacities and seating limits, but they may utilize the outdoor areas of their properties, so lawns and parking lots, etc., to allow for a lower customer density. In the case of multiple tenant properties, tenants and owners would establish the priorities. But what's important is no additional seating beyond what has been previously approved would be allowed. It's just spreading that seating out so people can dine in a safe manner and meet those requirements as set by the state. That you would authorize the town manager to administratively allow maybe town parking and public spaces to be used for alternative purposes within reason. Such spaces could assist with curbside pickup, pedestrian walkways, or an opportunity to reduce customer densities. And I think that what we're really looking at is, you know, trying to spread diners out again, or temporary structures. So, you know, for example, tents would be allowed to accommodate these new locations beyond our typical 30-day limit. And we want to make sure that people are being safe with both ingress and egress issues. And that we would also allow some temporary signage for the business, because certainly people have to put signage up that talk about how customers should travel if it's one way in and one way out, or reminding people of physical distancing or hygiene standards. And then time expansion of sidewalk sales, outdoor sales, again on retail, to allow people to have options, and curbside delivery options for retail as well as food service. So each one of these businesses is unique and their challenges will be unique. So we really need to look at each and every one and their specific circumstances. But we would consider all of these temporary in nature and look at them on a month-to-month basis. So as businesses are starting up in June, looking at what's necessary for June, and then revisiting that as June goes on to see what we might need to do for July. And Werner has suggested too that in exchange for these temporary allowances, that these businesses would sign on to the Kennebunkport promise.
So would you like to have a motion or in a vote on this?
Well, I don't know if Werner has anything else to discuss under that, he brought that forward with the businesses, and has anything to add?
Yeah, so so I think what you see outlined in the in the memo there are the things that come to mind, that, and these are things that businesses have brought forward to us to say, hey, here are some areas where we think we're going to struggle, and are there ways that the town can help us out? And I think we're going to come across more challenges as we progress through this, and as we work with the individual businesses. These are the potential challenges that we've addressed, from a town standards perspective. And I think just knowing, the direction that the board, wants to give us, so that we understand kind of parameters that we have, in order to try to make things work for our local businesses would be helpful.
Well, I think they need all the help they can get right now. And I think this is a great idea.
I've
What
got a
about you guys?
I've got a
I
question
agree with you.
for everybody, I guess. This release of liability for temporary use of public property, is that something you would ask that everybody, I guess, would sign as a requirement to be allowed to open or do business?
So
Yeah.
that would be if they were asking or requesting to use public property. So some people might be able to use their own private property and just expand outside a little bit for this temporary piece. And
Right.
they wouldn't need to sign that. But if they were looking to use any portion of public property, we would want them to sign off on that.
Did you run that by Amy?
We would, I sent it to Amy earlier today, and Amy's got a backlog of things she's working on for me,
I bet.
but yeah, we would get it finalized with her.
That would be my only concern. Is
Yeah.
that, how good is that piece of paper?
Yes, absolutely.
But I agree with the spirit that we need to help our business partners in town.
Yeah, I agree.
Mike, how about you?
Well, I agree,
Okay.
100%.
Yep.
Yeah. No,
So
I talked to
Whatever
Ware
we
about
can
it.
do.
So do you want a motion?
Well, we would like to know whether you agree with the parameters we've outlined in this memo, and we can proceed under that, or whether you want something different.
I think they're fine.
Yeah,
Can I make
I'm
one
good with
comment,
it.
though? This is allowances from code, is that correct?
It can be allowances under sometimes our procedures, or the way we allow people to use public property. It could be a regulation that normally says you can only have dining within the structure. So it's a variety of things.
Okay. All right.
Are these things that we would have to sign off, or we'd let code take care of that?
We would need to let staff deal with it in order to do it in any kind of timely fashion.
That sounds good to me.
Yeah,
Me too.
I'm all for it.
Yeah.
Me too.
I think it's great. I think it's great that you even recognize the fact that the town is so valuable to the business community in helping get everybody going. It speaks well of you, Lori, and I guess the rest of us, that we're all willing to help.
So getting back, you don't need a motion, do you, or do you?
I mean, if you guys would take a motion to authorize us within the
So moved.
parameters, that would be great.
All right, I have a first.
Do you want to, along
Go
with
ahead.
that motion, do you want to put an expiration on it? And,
That's up to you guys. Yeah, I think we should come back to you in June anyway to revisit before we go forward, because we'll know so much more then.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I have a motion on the floor.
I second it.
I have a first and a second. Any more discussion? Okay, I'll take a roll call. Ed,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Sheila,
Aye.
Pat,
Aye.
Alan says aye, motion carries.
So we have a question on our board from someone who hasn't identified themselves, but it says, how does the work of the selectmen around supporting short-term rentals in Kennebunkport solve for Governor Mills' stated rules around effectively banning out-of-state visitors and renters. So, I mean, we are not in a position to do more than what the governor is going to allow. Our job would be with the work with the businesses and short-term rentals and everybody in the community is to help define and clarify what those rules mean and to set some standards so that people will be in a better position to have a successful outcome for everyone involved, is what I think.
I don't think there's going to be a lot of rentals until they lift the 14-day quarantine requirement. But
I agree. Yeah.
you know,
Yeah,
it makes
and
it very, very difficult.
And the governor has stated that she might have some more information coming out about that. So every day we wait and hear.
So you want to move on?
Well, let's take what we've got and move on, because
There you go.
they'll
Yeah.
come back and tell us.
So, item 3, review Goose Rocks Beach Advisory Committee recommendation for a phased reopening of Goose Rocks Beach. Richard, I guess you're up on this one.
And I
Okay,
just want to let people know that this document that we got today from the beach committee just met last night. It is on the website under the Selectmen's agenda packet. There's another link that we put up today.
I'm going to grab it. It's on my phone.
okay, well, let me start out with what our focus was. And I guess one thing sort of summarizes it. When you look at the number of confirmed cases in the United States of about 1.2 plus million, and then the death toll of 76,000. Maine is 1.2, 1.3 million people. It's a 6% fatality rate. Pretty daunting to address. And there was an article in the New York Times this morning that
Oh, we all listen to the New York Times. Go
No,
ahead.
we
read
it. Come on, Sheila. No,
Okay, go ahead.
what it did was to look at how the virus spread, and they talked about seeding the virus in the United States, and most of it came out of New York City, and it was people traveling from New York City to other places and bringing the virus along with them. And I guess that is the fear here. And the business people who just made a presentation to you, they're obviously concerned about people coming into their businesses who bring the virus. So we just have to be cautious. There are only so many things we can do, but I think the issue for us in the Beach Advisory Committee was the health and safety of the residents of Kennebunkport and the visitors to Kennebunkport. So we proposed, discussed for a long period of time, a phasing to the opening of the beach. Right now, the beach is open with no parking. And the parking is the way to control the amount of people on the beach. In contrast to what you were just shown, that Cape May Strong, if you caught it when they talked about opening the beach was similar to what Wells is doing in Old Orchard. You could walk, you could surf, but you couldn't lie down on the beach. And we think that is, one, it is pretty much unenforceable. You're not going to have somebody patrolling the beach and telling people that they can't lie down on a towel or a blanket or what have you. And you know, there's an anger level out there right now. People are frustrated, and I don't think we want to add to the frustration if we can help it. So the staged opening, let me just run through it quickly, and then we can come back for individual ones. We're suggesting that the beach, the center of the beach, which would be from Broadway to Belvedere, which has 39 parking spaces, that be opened on the 15th of May. Open in the sense of letting people park in that area, but the people parking in that area would be limited to residents of Kennebunkport. And the chief has said that the 2020 stickers or the 2019 stickers would be fine, and somebody who has changed vehicles or what have you said the police have a way of checking the address of the person. So this is an accommodation for the people in our town. So it's opening some spaces there. On June 1, those 39 spaces would be available to anyone, and the 19 spaces on Dyke Road would also be available. So that it's the center of the beach and what is a major entry point, the extension of Dyke Road into the beach. Another 28 spaces from New Bedford Road to Broadway on June 15th, and then depending on how much experience we have with crowding on the beach, opening another 28 spaces, or I'm sorry, 35 spaces on July 1 or July 15th, and that's between Belvedere and Bellwood. That would open 70% of the parking spaces. We're recommending to hold off on New Bedford Road, which in itself is a problem because of the way they park and driving on New Bedford Road, and the spaces on the far west end, and that in part is to protect the plovers, because that's an access area where unfortunately people park there, they bring their dogs, they let the dogs off leash and what have you. But in any case, by July 1 or July 15th, you'd have 70% of the spaces open. We're suggesting, and this really came from initially from the town, but we had been talking about it as well. There have been some complaints about fires on the beach and smoke and what have you. The fires are a place to congregate, and we just said we need to eliminate them this year. Just no fires on the beach anywhere where it is. The trust property, town property, private property, just eliminate them. No overnight leaving of equipment, and this has been a constant issue. The leaving of umbrellas and those canopies and chairs and what have you, and people walk the beach at night and trip over them, but we want them to bring them in and take them out, and the town, the police department, the chief, been talking about a tagging system, and somebody leaves an umbrella overnight. In the morning, they'd find a tag on it, and the tag would essentially say, you're not permitted to leave your equipment overnight. It's subject to confiscation. Also talked about the selectmen enacting an ordinance giving the police authority to tow. And we've got some of or nearly all of the streets that are perpendicular to Kings Highway have either no parking or a fire zone. And I'd ask the question whether or not there is a clear authority for the police to tow, and the answer I received was no. The chief was asked last night what was his position in terms of the police department having the authority to order towing of a vehicle. And the chief said, look, people pay $4,000 a week for a rental. We put a ticket on their car for $50. They don't care. They'll pay the $50 and they'll park where they want. And he said, if he has the authority to tow, he said, I tow a few vehicles, people will get the message that illegal parking is not permitted. When we had the race and parade at Goose Rocks on the 4th of July 2 years ago, someone couldn't find a parking space. They abandoned their car in the middle of Kings Highway. You know, so it seems to me that that is a common sense thing, and most municipalities authorize their police to tow. The chief said certainly when he was the chief of police in Sanford, he had that authority, and I believe that that the procedure would allow you to do it within a couple of weeks. Sure, you'd have to advertise, you'd have to have a public hearing, but you could do it quickly. Yeah, most of the things that we proposed had either an 8-0 vote or a 7-1 vote. The one issue that was discussed was the daily parking stickers, which is encourages day trippers to the town. And since the general store is not opening until the middle of June, we suggested that between the time you open the parking to June 15th, there would be no daily parking stickers, and that the Beach Advisory Committee would meet the first week in June to talk about whether or not that should be extended further than the 15th of June. There was a general sentiment among the Beach Advisory Committee members that in this year, daily stickers probably not a good idea.
Richard, could you say that again? I didn't catch that, the last part.
Okay. The consensus of the members of the committee was that we should not have daily parking stickers this year.
Okay.
And I know, for some it's a revenue question. For some it's a pain. The general store sells parking stickers. They do not refund. So if somebody buys a parking sticker, can't find a parking space, and they bought this sticker from the general store, they're out that money. If they buy it from the clerk's office or the police department, they can get a refund. But that means, 2 trips to the police department, and it means the time for the police department or the clerk's office, one, to issue the sticker, and then to refund the money for the sticker. So there's good reason for not doing it this year and reconsidering it for next year. But at the moment, the recommendation is through June 15th, and prior to that, we would meet again probably early in the first week in June to discuss the issue and a further recommendation. There were a couple of other things. We did talk about funding for a volunteer coordinator for the plovers, and that is something that you have done each year, and it's a matter of $3,000. Since the plovers are here, I would ask you to authorize that this evening. That was a unanimous vote of all of the members of the committee. And I would suggest to you that I know you don't want to deal with the full phasing tonight, that you want to consider it, you want to have feedback, but I would suggest to you that it would be a good idea to at least do the May 15th to May 31st, which would free up 39 parking spaces for residents of the community.
But we're going to be meeting on the 14th.
Well, that's fine, but getting the notice out to people that it's going to be available, I would think that it would be it would be good to have it there, as we're going to open this beach and we're going to open the parking, and as opposed to just doing it the night before.
I agree, Richard.
Well, I don't want to pass the buck here, but I believe that when we had a joint meeting with the beach committee back in, I guess it was April, we left those decisions to Lori and Alan, and I don't see any reason to change that at this point.
And the only reason is that the suggestion for that first opening restricts that parking to residents only, and I don't think that was part of your authorization to Lori and Alan. So that there's a little bit of a twist in it.
Sure,
Well,
I would
Richard-
like to find out if we can even do that, but
So you have the authority to make a regulation. You do have to seek input from the beach committee, which you've done. So the one thing is, I would need you to form a regulation to do that, because currently the ordinances and regulations say we don't even require a beach sticker until Memorial Day weekend. So this would be a regulation that would say, yes, you do need a beach sticker, and it has to be a seasonal sticker before Memorial Day.
Lori, the chief had indicated that if people did not have a parking sticker from last year and they haven't purchased one or haven't received it for this year, that his people could easily check a license plate and the address. So, I mean, there are some people, I'm one of them, that the car that has my sticker on it is no
Right.
longer in my
So I
garage.
mean, we have the beach stickers in-house for this season, and people have requested them, and we could certainly help get those out to people. And the police, do have some capacity to figure out whose car is whose. And so we would do the best we can working through this. So if the selectmen are so inclined, certainly what I'd like to do is prepare some language for you to make sure we're doing it appropriately. But I think if you're giving me the nod, we can make those preparations to make it happen for Friday and have the vote on Thursday night.
I think it's a good
Laura,
thing.
I've got a question for Richard. It goes back to the parking spaces that you've got allocated. There's always been not enough parking there. And if you set aside 39 spaces just for the people who live in Goose Rocks Beach, anybody else that lives in Kennebunkport can't go down there. Is
No,
that
no.
correct?
No, Pat, it's the residents of Kennebunkport, not Goose Rocks Beach.
Oh.
Goose Rocks Beach people can walk there.
Well, that's what I was thinking when you
Yeah.
said,
No,
So let's
it's
just
Kennebunkport.
clarify. So let's just clarify when we say residents only, what we mean. And so we have some different types of stickers. We have a daily sticker, we have a weekly sticker, and we have a seasonal sticker. So the seasonal is both resident, we call it, and non-resident. In order to get a seasonal resident sticker, you need to pay taxes in town. So that could be property taxes, it could be excise taxes. And so it doesn't mean that you have to live here 12 months out of the year, but that you have to be a property taxpayer. So when we're talking about resident or seasonal, that's what we mean, is the definition of that sticker in our beach use regulations.
and another question following on, if you have these parking spaces set aside and restricted, does that mean they cannot overnight park in those spaces?
No, I mean, we had some discussion and there was some concerns from some of the members about overnight parking. you know, that the parking on Kings Highway has always been an issue. Some of the people who have houses on on Kings Highway park their cars there. In the past, there were some who did it just to discourage visitors to Goose Rocks Beach. But most of them, it's because if they have visitors, they don't have enough parking space for them, and so they may put their own car there. And you have renters that come up with an extended family, 2-3 cars, and there's only place for one parking space, and they park on Kings Highway. So the answer is no, and I think it would probably be a hardship for a lot of people to say no overnight parking on Kings Highway.
So do you guys want to go ahead and give Laura the okay to go ahead and go on with this? Then we'll vote on Thursday, next Thursday?
I'm good with it. We discussed it last night, and
It was unanimous, not almost unanimous.
but
No, it was.
that one was unanimous.
Okay.
And, and my point is, again, for me, a lot of this is optics. And if we're allowing our own people to park there and be on the beach, that's sort of the beginning of us spreading our wings. The flower is opening. And then by June 1st, again, we'll have more people who are more comfortable with going out and seeing what there is out there, and how can we do this in a safe way. And then by June 15th, we go to that next phase. And the reason, Richard, that I did not vote for that parking issue is because I don't like the fact that we're only going up to 70%. I think we have X amount of parking places, and by July, or at least by mid-July, I would like to see all of the spaces open. That's why I didn't vote for it.
The phasing is not something that's cast in concrete. I mean,
Right, I know that.
we can take a look at it as we move into the summer, and as we move into where the virus is and how expensive it is. I mean, those are going to guide us, and the governor's office in terms of what they're doing. But in some respects, we're suggesting being more liberal in the use of the beach than the surrounding communities.
So Mike, Ed,
We let
Pat,
Lori.
are you on board with this?
Not really, but you can go ahead and I'll see how I feel next week about it.
Well, we're giving it back to Laurie and the staff to continue to work on it, right?
Right.
So I'm looking for some general direction that if we are looking to have residents or seasonal stickers be allowed starting May 15th, then we would want to prep our parking signs and our staff to go out there on Friday morning, and that we would want to put some regulation language together for your consideration on Thursday. And but if you're not feeling an understanding that you could change your mind between now and then, but is that the general direction we're feeling?
Do we have to do something publicly because our ordinance, or do we have an ordinance that says that the beach stickers go into effect on Memorial Day? I know the signs say that, but do we have
Yes,
some?
we do.
So do we, the five of us, have
Yes,
the authority
you do.
to change that?
You do. Just like you had the authority to close the parking.
What about you, Mike? I haven't heard too much about this.
I'm all for it.
Okay.
I was involved in the meeting, the marathon meeting last night. So,
Oh,
and I heard everybody's comments and anybody who commented from the public. And
We had over 100
102.
people.
wow.
So I think that the way I feel is that the Beach Advisory Committee works hard. They did a lot of good work, and there was a lot of discussion. They properly voted, and keep in mind, these are people who live at Goose Rocks Beach, with the exception of Sheila and John Dykstra, and they live with it all the time. And there was a good discussion, a lot of discussion, and a lot of good consideration. And the vote says what it is, and I think we should go with it.
Okay,
So I'll prepare for as if we're gonna open to seasonal stickers on Friday,
yes,
Maybe,
15th.
yeah.
yep.
And
15.
And so I think the other two pieces of action items are whether or not you want to fund the volunteer coordinator. I think because the Plovers are here, they would like to start the coordinator as soon as possible. And so that would be one. And the second would be if you are interested in this towing vehicles and have any consideration of that, that requires me to post a public hearing notice and give 2 weeks notice, and then you have to have a public hearing. So if you're not ready to discuss that, that's fine. But if you're leaning in that direction, that's more direction I can get.
The chief was in favor of it, so at least implications was he is in favor of it. So I would say, yeah, we should back up the chief.
Can we start with
Absolutely.
the easy one? I'm in favor of the coordinator.
Same here.
Yeah, the
Let's
coord-
start easy here and work our way
I
up.
already, now,
Let's go.
Ed, I already brought this one up, so.
Okay.
let's do this.
I'm not in favor of that. If you want to have an ordinance, it's got to be town-wide, not just for Goose Rocks. If you want to have an ordinance that says the whole town, I think that's great.
Yes, the towing ordinance would be townwide. It would be
That's long
Yeah.
overdue.
it would be
fully
part
in
of our
support of that.
traffic. It would be part of our traffic and parking control ordinance. So, Goose Rock's Beach is bringing up the issue, but we agree that it would be townwide, not
That was
just
clear
downtown.
last night, Ed, honestly.
I would
Oh,
rather.
I don't disagree. I wasn't at the meeting, as you know, last night. I didn't get an invite, but I didn't go looking for it or looking too hard for one either.
Oh, you missed it. You missed it.
Yeah,
Are you
we
kidding me?
had
3.5 hours? I would have been asleep.
You wouldn't have been alone.
No.
Sheila, you haven't said anything yet.
Wow, my voice is scratchy from last night, but I agree with the coordinator, for the Plovers. That's fine. I'm not, as a business person, in favor of towing cars. I don't think it speaks well for our community. I would rather raise the price of the ticket as opposed to tow.
Well, hey, Sheila, I have one thought about that. I trust the chief's judgment. I don't think he would be doing it in a malicious fashion, but mostly as a last resort. So you gave him the opportunity to do it if he decides he has to. I mean, he does not have a quota in my mind of how many he has to tow,
And right now we're working with this chief of police, and next time it might be another chief of police, and this regulation will still be on the books. I have a problem with towing. When people come to town, as Richard said, for a week or 2 weeks, I just don't think it's.
Well, here's the way I look at it really quickly. The chief works for the town manager works for us. We're always going to have that link and control and guidance, if you will.
Okay.
There are situations, Sheila, that the chief really needs to tow a car, but he can't. And that's what it's all about. I mean, if he has a car that needs to be towed, if it's blocking, I've seen a lot of times a car blocking a driveway or it's blocking the road and he can't tow the car.
Absolutely.
So
So just so you know, Stedman Seavey has his hand up in the audience.
turn him on.
Turn him on.
You're on, Stedman.
Yeah, maybe he is.
It takes a moment. There he is.
Stedman, yeah.
Hello? It's actually Betsy Seavey speaking.
Oh,
Oh, hi, Betsy.
Hi, in case any of you don't know, we own and operate the Goose Rock Beach General Store and the gift shop upstairs. I just had one question about the daily passes. Last night, I listened to most of the meeting, but I gotta say, I didn't quite make the 3.5 hours. But on the dailies, I wasn't under the impression that they were gonna go all summer without selling a daily. I thought it was going to be more of a phase thing on if the governor's quarantine, obviously that quarantine is a huge factor, and I wouldn't want to be selling to people if there's a quarantine, but if the quarantine were to be lifted or whatever. So I just wanted to clarify, is that just carved in stone, or is that on something that you're going to take another look at after the governor, whether the governor lowers or keeps the quarantine?
We're going to take another look at it the first week of June. So the suggestion recommendation is not to sell daily parking stickers through June 15th. But we'll meet early June and take a look at it and decide whether or not we want to recommend extending it further or saying it's up to the Board of Selectmen and we don't have an opinion on it.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
It's not Betsy, it's not cast in concrete.
Okay, my other quick question, not to make this meeting go so long as last night's, is I think last night someone mentioned, and I'm sorry I don't remember who, but about a kiosk at the, I believe, east end of the beach, and then have us at the west end for parking passes, perhaps daily specifically. I don't know if they could work it on seasonal or weekly. We actually only sell the daily at the store, but I myself would be a huge fan of that. I've done it now for 12 years. I sell a lot of passes, and honestly, it's almost, my husband and I have both given people rides back to their car because they've trucked down from that other end of the beach because they don't want to lose their spot. And some of them are our age and they are just exhausted, and it's very difficult. You don't want to lose your space. So you're coming to get this ticket, and it's a trek for some people. And I know that's kind of a minor point, but if you're thinking, I heard it last night on the kiosk, one kiosk perhaps, I would just say I would be a huge fan of that. I think it would really help a lot of people as far as coming to the complete opposite end of the beach to get there and then going all the way back with the ticket. If that's a warm day and you have any age at all on you, you feel it, and we've seen it. So that's all I have to say, and thank you.
There was a
You're welcome.
there was a discussion of the kiosk at the east end and a general consensus that would be a good idea, assuming the Board of Selectmen authorized the sale of the daily stickers this season.
Okay, so we have two things that we might want to motion on. The first one will be the easy one, the coordinator. Can I have a motion on that?
So moved.
Second,
I have a first and a second. Any more discussion? I'm going to take a roll call. Ed,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Sheila,
aye.
Pat,
Aye.
Alan says aye. Motion carries. So how about the giving the authority to the police chief to tow vehicles?
So move.
Second.
I have a first and a second. Any more discussion?
This is in perpetuity then? Meaning that this isn't going to expire? No. Okay.
So, I mean,
I'm good with it.
what would happen is we would put the language out there. You'd have to have a public hearing, and then you guys could vote on it. But yes, it would become part of the traffic parking and control ordinance.
Okay.
So I have a first and a second. I'm going to take a roll call. Ed,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Sheila,
Nay,
Pat,
Aye.
Alan says aye. Motion carries. Okay. Other business. Mike?
No, I do. I have one thing. What if a local citizen would like to improve the appearance of the guardrail that goes along Cape Porpoise Harbor?
Sure. It sure needs a paint job.
On his own time.
On his own time. I think that'd be a great thing.
Or
That's
at least
me.
at least have somebody do a section of it,
Yeah.
because it looks awful.
It does.
So if we
Maybe
have
Mike can get you some
volunteer-
paint up at Highway.
Well, I think the volunteer would probably paint it himself, but at least a section of it. where the snow, not the snowplow, but the sidewalk snow blower bangs it up every year and so forth. It's gotten pretty bad. So I think we should do something about it. And there's somebody who would. So is there any liability from the town or anything?
There isn't, as long as you don't fall over.
As long as you don't use lead paint.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, okay. I'll make sure they know that.
I think it's a great idea.
That's nice.
How about Ed?
I was just wondering how we're coming down at Cape Porpoise Pier with the parking. And you can be brief, Lori.
So I sent you a message today asking you to meet on Monday.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. I've been out in the sun all day
And
today.
you said you couldn't meet in the morning, so yes.
Yes, okay, we're good.
We are working on it. I think there are some challenges there, and that's why I think we need a few parties to get together to best discuss it. I don't want to put a lot of work into something and then have people bring up other points. So that's why I was hoping on Monday that we could get
Sounds good.
some
Now
of
I'm
the
embarrassed, but
stakehol-
I'll see you Monday.
some of the
Monday it's-
stakeholders together.
How about you, Pat?
Yes, I've got a soft question for Laurie. Do you think that the planning board would be able to get back in operation any time in the near future?
Yeah, so next week, we're gonna be bringing you our reentry operations plan. And so Werner and I have been talking about the planning board, and so we think that as part of phase 2, which would be June 1, that we would have the planning board up and operational again, which means that we would use this time in the next couple of weeks to get them ready for that.
Great, thank you very much.
How about you, Sheila?
Now I'm good. I've had enough talking for 2 days.
Yeah, you sound a little hoarse. So I have nothing. So how about a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second,
I have a first and a second. I'm gonna take a roll call. Ed,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Sheila,
aye.
Pat,
Aye.
Alan says aye. We're adjourned.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night. Thanks for
night,
coming.
everybody.
Thank you.
Good night, Richard.
Good night.